Hello students, I am Tanmay De and welcome to Sanchoita. In this lesson, you can learn to take dictation of the editorial passage. Today's passage is an editorial of the Hindu. Speed will be 80 words per minute, total words 864. Readback and transcription are two main important factors of stenography. For this, you can turn on subtitle button. Knowing meaning and outline of important words also help you to gain speed and accuracy in stenography. So, after the dictation, you should try to read back your script and do transcription. After the dictation, you will get meanings and outlines of some important words and the full passage. Now be ready. I will start the dictation after the countdown of 5. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Start. Urjit Patel's virtual dismissal and virtual Acharya's resignation from the Reserve Bank of India are old news. Its capture by the Delhi government is extreme even by Indian standards, but no word of explanation came from North Block. Now both have given their own accounts. Of the two, Patel's overdraft is more scholarly and impenetrable. Let me try and explain what it weighs. It is common for Indian businessmen to borrow from banks and then default on repayment and interest. Suing them to recover the money takes years, so banks routinely take security in the form of mortgage on the borrower's assets, which they can get hold of and sell if the borrower reneges. That does not help them much. The borrower usually goes to court and the bank cannot realize the security while the case travels up through the courts. The government has made laws from time to time to help banks collect bad debts. Manmohan Singh initiated the Recovery of Debts Due to Banks and Financial Institutions Act in 1993. 33 debt recovery tribunals were set under it. They were supposed to decide a case within 6 months, but they took 4 years on an average. Then the defaulter would appeal against their judgment to one of the 5 debt recovery appellate tribunals, where he could count on delays of some more years. Then came the high courts, which could be persuaded to intervene, although the Supreme Court had told them not to. So the RDBFI Act proved pretty useless to banks. The securitization and reconstruction of financial assets and enforcement of Security Interest Act was passed in 2002 to enable banks to collect debts without recourse to courts. They could take over assets pledged as security by borrowers and recover their loans by selling them, but that too led defaulters to go to court against banks, it made little difference to the length of the legal process. So, in 2016, Arun Jaitley introduced the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, which provides for liquidation of a business that cannot service its debts provided its creditors can act together. It aims to create an entire industry specializing in liquidating businesses that cannot repay their debts. Their creditors can approach a new insolvency and bankruptcy board of India, which would register and regulate insolvency professional agencies. They would take over a defaulting business and either revive it or liquidate it and distribute its net assets amongst creditors. The industry is still to emerge. Banks' bad debts are one theme. Patel's other theme is the way government forces the banks it owns to buy its debt and finance its fiscal deficit. As a result, bank money, which should have financed productive private investment and contributed to economic growth, is wasted in government consumption. Patel calls this banking sector fiscalization. Banks recover some of their losses on bad debts by charging good borrowers higher interest. This raises the cost of investments. On banks' bad debts, the RBI followed what Patel called the within double quote 9 capital R decode strategy. Recognize the bad debts, make a record of them, start reporting any changes in them, start reporting any changes in them, recover them, resolve within bracket liquidate bracket close the businesses that cannot repay their debts, reinforce the regulation, recapitalize the banks whose capital had been wiped out by bad debts, reset the controls and ring fence the banks that could not make provisions against bad debts, and reform introduced controls that would prevent the recurrence of bad debts. Jaitley went along with the strategy. He got the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code through Parliament in 2016, and Patel and he agreed that it should be the principal way of resolving the bad debts, namely liquidate or sell off borrowers who could not pay off their creditors, including banks, and write off any resulting losses. Then the RBI issued a notification on February 12, 2019. It said that if banks could agree with their borrowers on a plan to resolve the debt, it had to be implemented within 6 months, and if no agreement had been reached, the borrower had to be liquidated under the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. After then, the finance minister got cold feet. He started talking about relaxing or postponing the action for particular sectors and borrowers. 5 banks with high bad debts which were under preventive and corrective action within bracket, that is, were not allowed to give fresh loans bracket close, were exempted from its application. The RBI was asked to give more time to borrowers. A press campaign ensued. Rather than succumb to the pressure, Patel resigned in November 2018. Borrowers went to the Supreme Court. The RBI's advocate dropped out of the case the night before he was to appear before the Supreme Court. In April 2019, the Supreme Court declared the February notification ultra-virus. Its judgment is extremely scholarly, referring to cases of no clear relevance from other countries. It ruled that the RBI could not ask any bank to take a borrower into bankruptcy without the command or agreement of a finance ministry. In other words, it disempowered the RBI in the crucial matter of dealing with bad debtors. I read the judgment, but I could make no sense of its reasoning. Stop writing. Now I am showing you outlines of few important words. This is part 1. This is part 2. Now, meaning of some important words. This is part 1. This is part 2. Now the full passage. This is part 1. This is part 2. This is part 3. And this is the final part. Through like, dislike and share and subscribe, you can encourage or criticize my work. Thanks for watching. Take care.